Virginia June Moore. This is the Sedona International Film Festival 25th Anniversary Edition. We'd like to thank Black Magic Design, Digitech, and the Sedona Rouge for being sponsors of the Media Room this year. And I have a very compelling film to talk about. Please introduce yourselves and your film, and let's have a little chat.
I'm Bo Landon. I'm a Swedish filmmaker who ended up in Utah and ended up doing one of many films, but this specifically at the festival is called Toxic Puzzle.
Yes. And you?
I'm Paul Cox. I'm director of the Brain Chemistry Labs in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
And this film is all about blue-green algae and the toxicity that it brings to the human body.
Yeah, I think it has come to the forefront this year a lot because people have seen and read in the news that beaches in Florida are closed because of what is known as red tide or algae blooms. And we talk about cyanobacteria. The blue-green algae are referred to as cyanobacteria. And I didn't realize as a biologist, having done a lot of wildlife films and other things, that this little organism in the ocean, in the lakes, in the water reservoirs, could mean so much to us, both for life and death.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get involved in this project?
You know, I had previously discovered with my team a new drug for HIV/AIDS. My colleagues in the National Cancer Institute. I became very emotionally involved with the HIV/AIDS community. Once that was launched to the pharmaceutical pipeline, I wanted to find another indication that had that same sort of sense of hopelessness, no good drugs coming out, and I chose ALS. And that took me to the island of Guam.
Yes, and that, can you go into a little bit about the Guam story in the movie?
Sure. I'm an ethnobotanist, so I'm trained to live with indigenous people and study patterns of disease and wellness. And the Chamorro people of Guam had the highest rate of ALS in the world in 2 villages. 25% of the villagers were dying from a disease that had symptoms similar to ALS, sometimes symptoms similar to Alzheimer's, sometimes Parkinson's. So our thought was these villages might be like a neurological Rosetta Stone. If we could figure out what was killing these villagers, it might give us insights to these diseases elsewhere.
Yes.
But the interesting thing, he said this to me. We had dinner, and he told me this story, and I said, Paul, this is a film. We need to document your work. And I set about to go to the co-producing companies I normally work with, like National Geographic here in the US, and I said, I have this fabulous story. I know where it starts. I don't have a budget. I don't have a timeline. I don't know what the end is. Would you like to join me? That's the impossible documentary film pitch. And I could get no broadcaster to say, oh, of course we're going to do this. So we decided, my wife Marianne and I, that we're going to do this film. I didn't know at the time it would take me 5 years of following Paul and his colleagues around the world before we could actually make a film and have a story to tell with a very positive and encouraging end.
And I had a lot of, sort of compassion for these filmmakers because they just followed us around and they didn't know how it was going to turn out.
Right.
But we just made the cover of Fortune magazine this month.
That's
because of our work on Alzheimer's disease. And now we're in advanced FDA-approved clinical trials at Dartmouth Medical School for the drugs we discovered in this journey. So it worked out okay, although you didn't know where it was going to head, I think.
But you know the old saying that a story needs a beginning, a middle, and an end?
You're right.
But not necessarily in that order.
Well, you kind of...
That's where we, herding cats is easier than following scientists who go everywhere.
Well, you leapt and you built your wings on the way down, right?
We did.
Let's look at the trailer and show everybody what we're talking about.
People who get this essentially have a death sentence. If I could discover a new drug, it would help millions of people. The big quest to me was to try to find something to treat ALS. This is probably one of the worst diseases known.
It's the structure of scientific revolutions. Paul's a risk taker. I've seen the puzzle pieces go down. I think he's a winner.
The toxic puzzle has many pieces. One by one, they've fallen into place. Science has opened up doors to a future which is both threatening
know it's in the food that we're eating, but we now know that it can cause these neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease.
For people who reach the age of 85, there's a 50-50 chance they're going to have Alzheimer's disease. And Alzheimer's disease is taking millions of people, and it's costing trillions of dollars.
Maybe soon, the scientists will lay down the missing piece.
Are we closer to a cure? I would say, I don't want to use the word cure, but I think we're close to prevention, and that's better than a cure.
Well, when you're this sick, there is never too much hope. Like, you know, if you told me to lick a tree, I probably would. Yeah, I put all my hope in Paul.
Because he's the only one that's ever given me like any inch of hope.
I can see you're a little emotional even watching the trailer.
I care so much about these patients. There hasn't been a single drug approved for ALS since 1993. There hasn't been a single drug approved by the FDA for Alzheimer's since 2003. I mean, and billions of dollars spent trying to find this. So I care about these patients. They need some good news. They need some hope, because these diagnoses of ALS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, any of the so-called tangled diseases is a devastating diagnosis.
But what's so devastating with this is that the pharmaceutical industry would say, well, ALS is such a rare disease, we don't really care. Those 32,000 people that at any given moment are living in the United States with ALS, they're not on their horizon. Mm-hmm. Now, if Paul and his team can show the connection between ALS, Alzheimer's, possibly Parkinson's, this group of illnesses, maybe, thanks to Alzheimer's, which is a much more common illness, the ALS patients will also get help.
What did this mean to you?
I was really amazed because Rick Tetzelli came out to Jackson Hole, whoops, there we go, and he said, hey, Paul, you're disruptive to the pharmaceutical industry. I said, well, I don't want to disrupt anybody. I just want to get sick people better. He said, no, you don't get it. You have this laboratory in a cabin, but you have 50 scientists, 28 labs around the world. FDA loves you. You've run successful clinical trials. You're in advanced trials. He said, you're totally disruptive. And then I asked my wife, she said, oh, that's actually a good thing he's saying.
Yes, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that your film, I know it's showing today, correct? The first screeners today?
First screening today at 4 o'clock.
Okay, and you have another one this week?
And on Friday morning at 10. Yeah.
And where online can people go and read about this film?
Well,
and this
the
research?
film is also available on iTunes and Amazon and Google and Microsoft TV, so on most of the platforms. But we yet have to find a broadcaster in the United States who would like to show this, which is kind of scary that this, what I find being both important and a film that gives hope. Mm-hmm. Even though we talk about an environmental disaster happening all around us, it's a film about hope.
Yes.
We want to transmit that.
And people interested in the science can go on to brainchemistrylabs.org.
Yes.
Or look at the Fortune article on Fortune.com. They put it up on their website. So
nice. And how was it getting the call that you made it into this festival?
Well, I mean, we saw the festival and entered it in, and we are so delighted to be here. We're so happy to be selected because we know how hard it is to get into film festivals. Mm-hmm. Getting a chance to meet the audience here and tell our story and introduce Paul to this community, we really look forward to it. It's going to be an exciting night.
Well, I look forward to talking to you after and seeing what the audience said and how the take was there. So
come up to Jackson Hole and we'll show you the lab. If I have a sandwich, I'll give you half of it. How about that?
All right, sounds wonderful. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
And stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back with another round of media interviews.